Welcome to A Scrap Life, a podcast solely focused on the hustlers, grinders, operators, and business owners who live and breathe the scrap metal industry every day. Here is your host, Rod Ekart.
All right, no time like the present. Let's get this thing fired up. If you haven't got a cigar, my guy Nick is running around with cigars. Come get one. We brought a lot. We'll hand them out until they're gone. We're not trying to take that shit home. We want you guys to have them. So I've been pretty excited about this podcast. I've done a few podcasts, not a lot, but a couple. And I've been wanting to do a podcast with Jay for a long time, but we just never been able to make it work. But more importantly, I have done a podcast with my dad and my mom. And I was able to kind of tell the story about our business. But because the scrap business, and I'm not changing it, it's the scrap business to me for now, is a fraternity. It's a fraternity of people that some guys played in the 70s, some guys played in the 50s, some guys played in the 90s, some guys played in the 2000s. It's a community of people that have relationships. It's multi-generational. It's family business at its core. Even through the consolidation, it's still family business. So I'm beyond excited. I've probably jotted down 100 questions that I'll never get to, but I'm excited for the two of you because you guys go way back. And the only reason I know you, Jay, is because of my dad, Rod. So for those of you that don't know, this is my dad, Rod Ekart, Mr. Jay Robinovitz, who I'm sure y'all know pretty well. But thank you guys for taking the time and doing this with me. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Brett.
You bet. Thank you, Brett.
So
Can't wait to hear Jay talk some more.
So wait, before you get started, and speak about talking.
No, he's going to.
yeah. Do you want to do the pod? You want to ask the questions? You want me to
No,
ask
I'm
the questions?
hijacking your ass for 1 second. I brought something for you.
All right.
Because nothing says Brett Ekart like get shit done.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
That's nice, Jay. Good job.
I'll be in your man cave soon.
Yeah. So the reason I know how to get shit done is because I was taught how to get shit done. That's the reality, right? Anybody that's grew up in the family business, that grew up in scrap yards, doing what we've all done at one point or another, you were taught how to get shit done at an early age. So I'm beyond humble, beyond grateful, I truly was a guy that started on second base. I mean, that's the way it is. Some people start in the dugout, some people start on first base. I started on second base. I'm not afraid to admit it, but it's not where you start as much as where you finish. So maybe you start in the dugout, maybe you start on second base. If I end up and I stay on fucking second base, that's on me. I'm trying to get home. I'm trying to make the lap. I'm trying to make the loop. I'm trying to score. The only reason I know how to do that is because of my dad. And I don't know where he learned it. I would assume from his dad, and where his dad learned it, we don't know. But I just want to say thank you. I appreciate you.
You're going broke.
Yeah.
Didn't want to disappoint the bank.
So take us back. How do you two know each other? Let's go. Let's take the history a little bit.
Go for it. John Spiegel.
Are we using that name out loud? No.
John Spiegel.
John introduce us?
He sent me to you because I had a bunch of locomotive engines I needed to sell parts off of.
I don't know if I remembered that tidbit. I thought it was just me spinning around out there in Sacramento and us crossing paths.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, you hooked me up with the guy that sold all the parts.
the parts? Yeah.
Local engines. Yeah.
like all scrap things through history, I had a little time with the locomotives. If you could cut it up and sell parts off it, I probably did it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good lesson. Yeah, then Schnitzer Steel.
Many moons ago.
Yeah. Before you lost your eye.
Yeah. I had 2 eyes then.
You got 2, not just one that works really good. So for those of you guys that don't know, in 1997, my dad wanted to retire my grandfather, and my grandfather, being the kind guy that he was, I mean, we were scratching. You guys were struggling, trying to make hay. Nobody had a lot of money. There was no money to buy my grandfather out of the business. It wasn't. There was no savings account that was going to enable him to retire. So my mom and dad took a leap of faith with a little old company called Schnitzer Steel at the time, who had just put a mega shredder in Portland, if I recall, and they needed people out there on the streets with small yards that had some ambition, that had some hustle, to go scrape up tons, send some tons to Portland. And you were able to hatch that deal with Schnitzer, and we became 50% owned by Schnitzer Steel at that point. Small little family company in Idaho, owned by, at that time, it was a privately held company. It wasn't a publicly traded company.
No, it was actually always public. It was public back from '92, actually. So we just didn't act like it,
Okay.
Right.
which
Yeah.
is good for me, by the way.
So, and then that's kind of where the relationship kind of really took form. Is that correct?
Correct.
And we got to be friends and cohorts and accomplices.
No, we didn't
Yeah.
have the internet like we had today. I mean, we had to be friends. You had to be on a phone call.
So between the two of you, when you guys think about the importance of relationships, like you said, you didn't have the internet, you didn't have the reach, you didn't have the ability to reach out and touch 1,000 people with one social media post. Events like this kind of became important. But one of the most fond memories I have of being partners with Schnitzer Steel was not the accounting, was the horse race, not the horse races, but the drag races that you set in motion, Jay. So let's talk about the drag races.
So way back when, we used to get together, and when I was in Sacramento with Schnitzer, we used to go to Pomona every year, and we'd ride down to the drag races and spend some time and have a barbecue. Well, then I was moving to Tacoma, and the barbecue guy and I are really good friends, so let's barbecue our way up north. And then when we get there, there's a racetrack right up there, so we'll have a little party. We'll have a few guys, you'll barbecue, we'll eat, we'll get a little tent, it'll be good. Well, the first year was like 75 people, and then we went back to our house and had a barbecue in the backyard. Perfect. Next year it was 150, then it was 350, then it was 4 and change, and the thing just got to be a total weekend of golf and drinking and cigar smoking and playing and being together, but it was neutral ground. It was consumers and suppliers and customers and competitors, and the Keck guy was there, and the Lee Bear guy was there, and everybody was there. Texas Shredder was there, and Riverside was there, and we all became really good friends. And we'd go compete like hell all the time until this weekend, where we just go out and thrash it. And because we were all in the industry, we had so much fun together. And the first couple of years were pretty covert. I wasn't sure how the company was going to react. And by the end, Dr. Leonard Schnitzer was coming, and the presidents were coming, and we had, it just was a great event for people to be together, because it's an industry about knowing one another, trusting each other, and being able to help one another.
I only want to add one thing to that. If you've never experienced nitro and pine tree smell, it's a must. You got to go do it, because those drag races are the best right there.
So I tell people there are 2 things, powerful things that I love, and I love anything with big horsepower. It's being the guy that gets to push the button in an EAF. And for those of you that saw John's repurpose, when he was going to the steel mill, it's like, John, just tell him you want to press the button. There is nothing like it's like controlled lightning. You push the button, and every hair on your arm stands up and goes, and I just love that. And the only other one was we'd go to the drag races, and we'd bring newbies down by the starting line, and it's 7,000 horsepower cars side by side. it stinks of nitromethane, which I love that smell. I thought they should put it in little bottles so I could spray it in the car.
Especially with the pine tree.
Yeah. People's eyes are burning, they're dying. But you bring somebody new, and we'd all latch our fingers into the chain link fence. And when they hit the throttles on these things, and it's 14,000 horsepower in a fraction of a second, it just goes boom, and you see them go, wah! Like fly back on the ground. And we were having a lot of fun.
Can't hear it anymore.
Yeah.
What?
You had to bring your earplugs. And then we would rent buses. We would rent minivans. We'd fill those suckers full of Coors Lights. And we'd mob down to the races and then have a coolers full of Coors Lights for after the race. So because the line to get out of that thing was batshit crazy. And man, some of the best times. But what I liked about it was, like you said, it was we would be out there competing all day, every day. I mean, but then you could get everybody together, and this is before I was in the middle of competing, but just knowing the camaraderie that was built at an event like that is similar to an event like this, where you get to kind of get everybody together. Guys here compete, you know, they're out there competing against each other, but then they get to get together, talk some shit to each other, hang out, and reminisce about some good times. And I think I miss those events.
So you may not remember, but I looked to you as security. I didn't even have to ask. You and the football dudes, it's like, people are like, what are you going to do? It's like, I don't have to do anything. I just have to stand here next to him and look really good. I feel very safe at the moment.
So I'm going to use this podcast because I have a series through the Scrap Life called Generational Courage. I started hatching on this because there's a lot of different ways that family businesses interact, and a lot of ways that family businesses have evolved over the years. And because the scrap business, recycling material business, whatever you want to call it, has evolved over the years, it's so family oriented. And Jay came from a family business, and I'm curious, you know, what there's a lot of different ways, there's a lot of different paths a person can take in this industry. You chose to leave your family business and go to Schnitzer, right? Did you go straight from your family business?
No, I
want to hear the
couple
story.
stops along the way there.
Yeah, let's hear this. Let's hear the decision-making process is interesting to me.
Well, leaving was hard, but it was actually just a momentary thing. I wanted to change. As anybody that knows me, I go 100 miles an hour. I don't sleep much. I got a lot of ideas, and I think things should constantly be changing. And I wanted to do all this stuff, and my dad very slowly just said to me, it's like, that's wonderful, but my company, and as long as I'm alive, we're going to do it my way. When I'm dead, you can do whatever you want. But until now, it's mine. And just about that time, my grandfather walked by, and he was just about 100 years old. And it's like, I'm never going to make it. And I left, like all good things with my dad, it was, an event. He's like, that's my car. It's like, here's the keys. I bought the boots. Here's the boots. I left in my socks. A car hauler gave me a ride home. I called Judy, my wife at the time, and said, I'm home. She goes, what, are you sick? It's like, no, I'm done. I quit. And I've never stepped foot in there again. So it was a one and done kind of thing.
Yeah.
And, it was kind of like rock and roll world. My grandparents never spoke to me again until the day they died. You left the company, it's old school, old family. You left the family, you're dead to me. And so it was kind of weird. It's leaving family businesses, like all family business things are hard. And so I went to sell new tractors. New to my father meant something less than 50 years old that still ran. So these are new Volvo Whites and auto cars. And I go in and I got a jacket on and I'm feeling kind of cocky. And it was okay till about 6 months later, I realized out in the back in the garage in the shop, and I'm ripping apart wrecked trucks, and we're selling transmissions and rear ends, and I'm rebuilding stuff, and I'm covered with grease again. And it's like, I did not go exactly as I thought it was going to. So I realized I was back in the scrap business. And right about then, someone approached me to come get involved and run a shredder, my first one in the early 80s, at a company called Sussman and Blumenthal, became Aerospace Metals. But they were in a titanium, nickel, and alloys businesses for Hamilton Standard, Sikorsky, or Pratt & Whitney. and all these incredibly Smith & Wesson, Colt. I had guns laying everywhere,
Yeah.
but I knew nothing about that side of the world. So it was a very different business, and I was there for many years. And then I was at an ISRI event talking about PCB issues that we were having, and I met Gary Schnitzer, and he says, "Come to the West Coast," and that kind of catapulted us. I went home, and it's like, guess what? We're going to California. It's like, what? And we picked up the two kids at 3 and 5 years old, moved to California. Didn't know a soul. I just went out and with next to nothing because we didn't have anything, which made it really easy. And it started that 17-year plus process there. So it was a great run, and I look back. My dad still is 92. So the moral of the story is, was it the right decision? He's 92. He still goes to the yard. They still do it his way. And my brother, who's 68, is still waiting. So on his birthday, I called him and congratulated him, wished him a happy birthday. It said, and by the way, my math's right. You hang in there another 8 or 10 years, you're going to be in charge. You're almost there. And as you can imagine, the reaction. But I think it's been a great thing, and I don't begrudge anybody. Every business is different. Every family is different. It just wasn't going to be what Judy and I needed.
So, Pops, let's go.
I kind of fell asleep there.
Have another drink.
So tell me the story.
Well, your grandpa, my dad, was never in that great of health, so I knew that I could outlive him. I mean, I probably shouldn't have a few times, but I did. But he had a couple heart attacks, and you could see the handwriting on the wall, and I wasn't going to give up the business. I mean, we went to work after school every day to go make it happen, and instead of playing sports or doing anything like that, we just went to work and loved every minute of it, and I wasn't going to let that go away because he was getting sick or worse, and if he didn't, I threw a banana peel at his feet. Kind of kept my hands going.
So, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No. So, I think it takes courage to do both, right? Like, I think
To walk away, yeah.
It takes courage to walk away and chart your own path. It takes courage to stay in and fight it out, right? And so I bring that up because I think in this room, in our industry, it doesn't have to be one way. If you sell out because somebody offered you too much money to stay in, there's nothing wrong with that. If you leave because you didn't have a good feeling or you felt like you were destined for more, there's nothing wrong with that. If you decide you want to stay and build because there's a vision, then there's nothing wrong with that. Like there's actually something to be said for all of them, right? I think for me, I always knew what I was gonna do. Like there was never a question. I always knew I was gonna be in the scrap business in one fashion or another. Whoever would have me, I was gonna be here. And even though we do other stuff, like that probably makes more money than being in the scrap business most of the time, I still love this industry. And I truly believe that you went and you took you left a family business. You went, at the time, Schnitzer was still a fairly family-oriented-ish business, and you then moved to a family business, right? And I'm sitting here looking at Michael Goldstein because to go and move to another family business, and I bring this up because if you're a family business and your kids don't have the juice that it takes, or maybe they're just not ready at the time, it's not a bad thing to look out on the landscape and see someone that could bring value into the family business. You can still keep it family and wait for somebody that's in a position that can then take that family business and run with it.
So now looking back, I'm really good at family businesses, just not my own family. I keep trying to get adopted. Nobody will adopt me.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think that it takes all kinds, and I think that's something I wanted to bring up because I think it's super important that it doesn't have to be one way or the other.
Something Rod said a couple minutes ago is, they did it, and we all work incredibly hard. I grew up, when I met my wife, I worked 7 days a week. She's like, when do you take days off? It's like, when I do days off. Why don't you do days off? It's like, 'cause we're in the scrap business. Like, why? Well, can't you take Sundays off? It's like, no, who's going to load the trucks? She's like, this whole conversation is ridiculous. And I didn't know. I didn't know what a regular family was like, or regular life was like, because when you grow up in the yard in the 10 blocks, you just don't know what's outside that 10 blocks. And I think
Sundays were made for burning copper out in the desert.
not to the best of my recollection. But it was, and Rod, it's. See, well, how did you get there? What drives you? What motivates you? It's like we all got to eat. And I was always afraid when I left my dad. He kept us starving just because that's the way he was. But it's work harder. You don't know where that next meal or where your next role. And I've had enough things in my career where it looked like everything was going to turn over and get flushed down the toilet in a second. So, you never could stop fretting, and you couldn't stop sweating, and you couldn't stop worrying, and you couldn't take your eye off it. And I don't know, it was just hard to let go because it all disappears in a minute, or I was always afraid that it would disappear. I'm still just trying to get to the last 2 weeks here.
Yeah. So what do you think, Pops? What's your take on the family business?
I don't know. I love the way our business is going. I mean, it's like it was thought out, planned out, designed, but I mean, it really wasn't, but it is. It looks that way.
From a succession plan, people talk to me about succession planning, and they say, well, how did you do it? How did you do this? And I always say, because I have 2 young boys. I got a 14 and a 10-year-old boy. They don't spend nearly the amount of time at the yards that I spent, because that's what we did. Every Saturday we went to work. Even when I was young enough to not work, I watched college football or cartoons before college football in my grandpa's office.
And eat 2 breakfasts.
Yeah, eat 2 breakfasts. I was a grown boy, man. I was trying to.
Now later in life, I realized the reason we had to go on Saturday and Sunday is because my mother wanted us gone.
Yeah.
Didn't matter what you did, just get out of here and go with him.
Yeah. But a lot of times my mom was there, right? Because my mom was working the office. My mom's here too, by the way. I got them both to come out. So that's probably one of the reasons that's all I know. So I think about my kids, and they don't spend nearly the time, which maybe they haven't developed the passion, or they won't develop the passion that I had for it, which I'm fine with. I mean, I've kind of come to terms with it in the fact that I don't know if they'll ever want to do what I do. Maybe they'll want to do storage or they'll do something, right? They got their mom's brain, so they'll be all right. But I often think about that. What does that look like for other people's families? They're trying to go through that succession plan. But I was lucky because I had a dad that basically kind of gave me the keys to the car and said,
I'm out of here.
Go figure it out. And I want to bring this up because
First car I gave you, I had to crush because you were a shit.
I might have got caught smoking pot. Yeah, that might have happened. But I often think about that. When I say I start on second base, I start on second base because I had someone to give me a chance. Like I had someone to just say, hey, go see what you can get done. And so not every dad is like that. Not every dad has the ability to let the reins go and just say, yeah, let's just see what happens. And for those of you that do, you're blessed. You're very blessed. You should be very grateful, because there's a lot of situations where it doesn't happen. And you guys are kind of the yin and the yang. I really look at it, and what made me think about getting the two of you on this podcast together was when you said, your dad's my hero. And I was like, my dad's your hero. And I said, why? And you know,
I look at what you did, Rod. You thought about it, and you said, I've got so far, I'm going to give it to him. I'm going to watch him grow, watch him first, let him take it and run. You know, when I was young, I was kicking down doors and knocking things down 100 miles an hour. That's why I love listening to him and watching him. It's like I was like hell on wheels, and every now and then Judy would say, "It's like, if you'd stop running at 100 miles an hour, throwing grenades over your shoulder, you might leave a little less destruction behind you." But I had there was no off switch. I just didn't have that. And I look at my dad, who's now in his 90s, goes to the yard and still hasn't quite relinquished that. And I've seen so many people do it. There's two forms. Either I built this business, I built my life, what are we working for? We worked our asses off because we were going to starve to death. So we worked really hard to make it. And then what do you want to do? It's like, well, the business is running, it's doing well, I've got what I need. You're off enjoying your life, and he gets to pick up and run the business and build the same kind of thing and have that pride and growth in the next section. My dad chose not to do that. They're going to wait till he's dead, and then they're going to start. But, the 40 years between those two events is a lot of time. And you can't make that back up, and it's a different way. And I don't think, and I'm not being critical, and I'm picking on my family a little because I think it could have been very different if, 40 years ago, my dad had said, look, if you think you can do this, go ahead and try it. Let's see how it goes. Let's do this together. Go ahead and run with it and see what you're going to do. The business would look so different today, and my brother's lives would be different, and my family's lives would be different. And they didn't get that chance. So I can see what happens if you don't do it well. And then I see what happens. And so part of this, I was talking to my hero, I'm retiring in 2 weeks because I want to give the next generation the chance to go run this thing. I want to get out of your way. Because if you haven't noticed, when I'm in the room, I really don't stop talking. And, my answer's always right. So I don't get the problem, but.
Always right. That's her coffee cup.
So what made you, because your dad was different than you were to me, right? And you and I have had this conversation, but I would like for you to just kind of discuss it, Pops. Your dad didn't do for you what you did for me. And what made you look at that differently?
I'm not so sure that he really did it any different than I did, because that's kind of where I got it from, was him. He liked to sit in his office and smoke cigarettes and watch sports and make sure us boys are out there working hard enough to keep him in the lifestyle he was accustomed to. But at the end of the day, I probably started with your terminology, I probably started on first base. It was at least a start. We weren't greenfield in anything. So. But he did us right.
Yeah. Without him, you and I aren't sitting here today, right? It's a very different picture, and I feel like that. I'm grateful. I'm thankful for that, and I know that it was a different fight at the time because you had a brother in the business and you had yourself in the business, and it was a different dynamic than what I have. For people that I don't relate to people that have siblings in the business or cousins, or because I don't have that. I have a sister, and she's a school teacher, and she does her thing, and she's a damn good school teacher. She's good at what she does. So I don't envy the position of some people that have to fight that battle, because I believe that's a whole nother podcast that I don't know anything about.
I think family businesses have challenges on a lot of levels, and all families are different, and they're all dysfunctional one way or the other. Nothing.
Yeah.
No offense.
Don't believe Instagram.
Yeah. It's not all rainbows and unicorns, and when you get money and business and future, and it's shifting from generation to generation, and I've watched so many people, whether it was businesses we were acquiring or business I was involved in, where that shift. We grew up. Everybody says, when did you start in the industry? It's like, well, my parents used to tell people they found me in the trunk of a car. And when you're little, you believe that shit. And it's like, oh, they found me in the trunk of a car. And so, when did you start? I don't know. When they finally opened the trunk. But you look at families as, they started off in the yard, and then that generation grows up, and then the next generation, has it a little bit better, and the next generation has a little bit better, and then they get to go to college, and then some wander off and some stay in, and it becomes more complicated, and then it's a growing every generation, and as the business grows, there's a point where it says, why are we doing this for our benefit? Are we doing it because we're happy and we want to? Is it providing everything? Why are we chasing the goals we're chasing? And you really have to have really incredibly hard conversations. And and I think you got to have them often, and I think it's really hard to be honest. It's just really hard to be there. So I think families, and coming from total family dysfunction, I say this with all the goodness in my heart, they're all different. And I think it takes a lot of work to be in a family business. People go, well, it's a family business, you got it made. It's like, maybe your family, but it's
So, go ahead, Pops.
I just agree 100%.
It has to be significantly more challenging when there's siblings in the business, especially if they're.
You had to blindside them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Stay ahead of them. I don't know.
It creates competition unless you can clearly define the lanes of everybody's. I look at our business now as.
Takes them a while to get to like you again.
Yeah, exactly. I look at our business now as a family business, right? I mean, when I graduated in 2004, like I'll back it up a little bit, and you guys, if you ever heard the podcast, you've heard these stories before. But when I graduated high school, before I graduated, I was like, I want to get in the office. I want an office job. I want one of that jobs, and that was like. Then go to college. Like somebody needs to fucking go to college in our family. Like go see what it's about. Are the stories true? Is it as good as they say it is? Right? And so I got that encouragement.
Well, I need you to play some football. Get knocked around a little bit. Hollow it out.
So I did. I went to college and I came back. And like any guy that's fresh out of college that's 22 and ready to like tear the world down, I'm like, this family business is great, but I want to grow the family business. What do I got to do? And our first yard, we kind of found this little yard out in Gooding, Idaho, and at the time we had our Caldwell facility and a little feeder yard in Mountain Home, and I was like, I want to buy that. And the first question my dad asked me was, who's going to run it? I remember it like it was yesterday. Who's going to run it? Like, we can only split, Mountain Home Call. We need who else in the family can run it, or who else can we? And I said, I'll find somebody, and we ended up finding somebody internally, and we ended up working through it. But anytime and I'm going through it I got some partners in Oregon that are here today, and we've built a hell of a business together on the backs of their hard work, and we were talking about another facility, and the first question I asked them, I said, who's going to run it? That's what was asked me. And so I've recruited my friends. I've recruited people that I view as family, and off the backs of who's going to run it. Because that's what you need to build a business. You need people to run it.
So I think that's the single biggest limit to growth. And everything we look at businesses, well, where nobody's going to stay, it's like we don't have any people. If you don't have good people, we don't want it. I don't care how good it is. Without people, it doesn't matter. But I was at dinner last night, and it's like Judy's like, what? It's like, I think I want to hire this waitress. It's like, it's you get a personality, you get somebody. It's like this has got some zing, some intellectual curiosity. Everybody, you need people, and I think you figure out what that spark is in people, that they got that little people thing and they're going to go get it done, and they're a little snippy and a little sassy, and it's like, ooh, I need to harness that shit. But we go from yard to yard, and that's exactly the first question with every place we go. Who's going to run it? And I think that the goal around everything, and this, I'm going to rub something really raw here. So the problem with family businesses is every business and every ownership and every relationship is about trust, and it's got to be like incredible trust in each other. And when sometimes within families, it's hard to get trust because you got the family thing. It's not like a pure trust of a relationship that you've structured around the trust. you got the family stuff that ekes its way in that says, well, I trust you, but I gotta get a little squish out of it. And it's a hard balance. But you like to do business with people you trust.
Yeah.
You want to spend your time with people you trust. You know, whether they're on your team or the other team. It's like, I got a bunch of people that I compete with all the time. We trust each other. It's like, Jay said that. It's like, yeah, there's no goddamn way he said that. And, you know, it's like, you call me, tell me if somebody tells you I said that. But you have to trust the people you surround yourself
So I saw you wrinkle your nose up there. I know you well, and you said that family, business, and trust, and I saw you like you just ate a turd. You're like, and I was like, oh no, I know there's something brewing in there on that.
Yeah.
So what is
I
that?
learned family trust.
Yeah.
I felt like I was the one bent over all the time.
But to your point, like there's a lot of dynamics there that have to be worked through, right? And I mean, whether you want to talk about it or not, I know that was a big pinch point for our family business at the time.
Cash-driven business.
Some of the great, so when we were kids, at the end of the day, we were in the auto parts and the scrap businesses many, many, many years ago. And, you know, everybody that walked up with a part, you looked at them, you gauged them. This is long before, you know, this is self-service before self-service. How much money do you think he's got in his pocket and how much do you think he knows about cars? It's like, and you guessed what the part should be, and you took his money and you put it in your pocket. So at the end of the day, it's like it was our money, their money, my money. So we'd end up checking each other's pockets and trying to figure out who was stealing more money from who. And it's like, okay, this cash thing is just not working out quite. The distrust that it brings because, you know, did you get more than I got? And, you know, it goes back, I was just talking to somebody about fair. I hate the idea of fair. You know, fair's not such a great word.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think it's whoever puts the most work in, whoever makes the most shit happen should get most of the brunt.
Get shit done.
Absolutely.
I saw that and it was screaming your name. What are you doing? It's like, and I don't order anything online. It's like, what the fuck? How do you do this?
So Jay, as a guy that's consolidated, and you're an industry consolidator, in my opinion, right? Good, bad, or indifferent. Look on it however you want to. How many of those deals were done because there was no succession plan? Is it?
You know,
I mean, on a
some were no
percentage
succession,
basis.
but some was they just didn't. You know, they didn't feel it. There was a variety of reasons. But to go back to what we were just talking about, most of those deals got done because we were sitting around having a cocktail, smoking a cigar, and having a conversation that led to, you know, what if you just kind of like sold me your business and we can just like, and most of it's done on a napkin. You know, it's like I can't tell you how many ones. It's like at the bar, it's like, and it's like, here, take that and think about it. But I think that there's a trust thing. I think families get to a point where sometimes the business interferes with the family's health, you know, because they start fighting in the family and it's bad. And, you know, if... Yeah,
that's
exactly
part of
it,
the, you know, that's part of the reason that we are in the position that we are.
Well,
right
I
there.
know that, you know, I mean, I was there when that was going on with you guys, and that's how we got to know each other, and, you know, and part of what I think is that you can relate to people that say, hey, I've got my own screwed up family. So if you want to talk about screwed up families, I can like lead you down a path that'll just take forever. A few cocktails will go on for hours. But, you know, the idea is there's a point in every business where it says, why am I doing it? And is it the right thing? And do I want to carry the burden? A lot of the family businesses that we buy, and a lot of them are, and I say this because I'm just facing this as I retire. I don't own this business, but I'm retiring for a reason. You know, when you own that business, you're responsible for every single family, every employee, and every family that's underneath you. And that burden is really high. And, you know, it's like, why do you sleep? Why are you so fussy? Would you turn the goddamn cameras off? It's like, I can't turn them off. Yeah. And I can't because I'm worried all the time that something's going to go wrong or somebody's going to get hurt or something's going to, you know, cause this. And I look at life, when you talk about the banana, I refer to that banana peel like my whole life is like it's going to take one wrong step. And I tell everybody, my world is chutes and ladders. It takes forever to get up anywhere. And then in an instant, one stupid comment and you're right back at the bottom of the hill again. And I look at my life that way. So I fret a lot about, and I worry about those families and their health and their future. And that is a huge thing. So I see some of these guys that are in their 80s that have been carrying this, and that weight just crushes them. That's why I think they're just.
Did you feel that? Did you feel the weight when you were operating everything? Did you feel that the pressure he's talking about?
Well, sure, you feel it, but it's how you handle it, right? I mean, you know that's an issue. You know that weight is there. You know how it's going to affect people when you make a decision, whether the decision's going to be right or wrong. But it's still like one of those deals. You just got to, like you say, put your chips at the center of the table and take a chance. But no, I didn't. It's easy for me to walk away. It really is, because.
Well, but you got somebody to pick up the ball. It's easier to walk away when there's somebody to carry the water.
And you just look at the people that he's surrounded himself with. I mean, if you don't know them, take a chance and get to know them. Because when I tell you, these guys are a rock star team. So it's easy for me just to walk away and go to the hills and play on my little piece of equipment.
Yeah, and that's why I'm excited. It's like I'm set to leave now under a thing. Now everybody's in good hands. I leave you all in good care. I look at, I don't know how the pandemic was for you guys, but people are like, you don't know what you're doing. It's like, I absolutely don't know what I'm doing. I have no goddamn idea what I'm doing. I'm making it up as I go along.
Our government.
Jack and I are like, what the fuck are you thinking? Somebody gives a little bit of information and we make a decision. It's like 2 days later, wrong. So we were like schizo through the whole thing.
And I think that when I talk about the generational courage, I talk about it from all levels, right? The courage on the young, the up and coming generation to fight the fight or go do your thing. But I think it takes a lot of nuts, man. It takes a lot of courage to walk away and believe that somebody's going to hold the fort down too. There's a lot to be said for that.
Well, in the transition period, and this is a little tidbit. Now that I'm in the last couple weeks here, I've been transitioning out. When I came into Rob, and Rob Goldstein, if you don't know him, he's a great guy, and he says, you come in, I'll take care of your family, you take care of mine. And it's been incredible. I mean, just absolutely fantastic. But then I did me, and I just like spinning around like a whirling dervish, It's like, and he stepped back kind of going like, huh? And he let me go run at 100 miles an hour. And I'm gonna like crash through the door, figure out what's on the other side right after you get there. And he let me do that and build the business and grow and do things. And he's like, are you sure you know what you're doing? It's like, no idea. We're going anyways. And he supported it all the way through. And it was such an incredible thing. And now I'm looking at, I'm turning to Michael and Jack and the team, and I'm like, this is a little weird stepping back and watching somebody else run well. But it's amazing when you can do that. You say you're so proud you can watch it, you can see it because they're on that path. But I never stopped. All of a sudden, I'm going to not be the guy kicking the door in? This is a little weird. So.
Just have to find a different door.
Oh, yeah. I have no doubt. Yeah.
You'll be kicking some doors in. It just may not be that same door.
No, I'm going to very quietly go sit down.
Yeah. I don't really believe that. I believe that one thing I do believe is I believe relationships are important. This business is built on relationships. It doesn't necessarily have to be quote unquote family, but I believe that this business, this industry was built on relationships. And that's why we're all sitting here today. That's why I'm able to have some of the conversations that I can have with you, is because of the relationship that he built with you. And so I want to make sure that people understand that the importance of building those relationships and having those conversations and reaching out and asking people questions. Most anybody here, I guarantee you, if you ask them how they did something or why they believe something to be a certain way, they're going to tell you their opinion. They're willing to be honest with you because they want to see other people have success. I've only gotten to where I'm at is because I've been willing to ask the question. I've said, hey, how do you do that? Why does that do that? Like, what can I do if I do this? Most people want to help, but you can't get any help if you don't ask the question. So if you don't want to do it in person, send an email, send a text, get on LinkedIn, do something, and let other people help you.
So I love that this, you just got to be willing to say, could you explain this to like a second grader? Because I need you to talk to me and explain. I don't understand what you're talking about. I need you to talk to me like, think about this, whatever it is for dummies, because that's where we're at. And and until I get it, you can repeat it 10 times, but once I know it, then I know it. But people are afraid to ask and say, I don't know. I'm afraid to, raise my hand. It's like, I'm the dumbest bastard some days in the room. It's like, just somebody just bring me up to speed.
Do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I was just thinking, if you're going to explain something to me, you better do it in like 2 seconds, or I'm going to be off somewhere else.
I will say this though, I just want to go back to it. It's not easy. There were days that my dad and I, like, God bless my mom, like, we would be running a business together and not talk to each other for a month and trying to run a business. And can you imagine with your dad and not talking for a month, and my mom going, will you just say hi in the morning?
And it was over
and I was
something
like,
stupid.
fuck that guy. I ain't doing it. I'm not talking to him. I ain't doing it. Like, he has to come talk to me. And then she'd be like, come on. Like, it's like 2 bowls in it. So I don't take any of it for granted. It's hard. Like, what we do is hard. As family business, is hard. But the juice is worth the squeeze, I promise you. If you can find some common ground and you can get over the hump. And I just want to reiterate that, I'm super happy I was able to get my dad to come out. This is a probably once in a lifetime deal for me, but it's not going to be easy. But if it's nothing that's good is ever easy.
So I got to tell you one quick story. You're talking about family not talking. When Judy first came onto the scene, my family's totally dysfunctional. I make no bones about it. So we had to go to dinner Friday nights. If you didn't go to Friday nights, you didn't get your money on Saturday, and you starved to death. And that was the way he liked it. So you don't show up, I don't give you your money, you don't eat. It was a pretty easy, straightforward program. So Judy comes to dinner, and we had had a really rough family week. So we get in the room, and we're all sitting there at the dinner table, and nobody is saying a word because we haven't spoke to each other in a very long time. And the tension is so tight. And she's like, what's going on? It's like, don't say anything and don't talk. Just sit here, eat, until finish. And they're the same guys, and we'll all go our separate ways, and it'll be fine. But if we don't sit here quietly, but it was different. That's what I say about families. The communication in some families, you have to be able to say, look, what's going on? Sit in a room. And it's easy to say. It's incredibly hard to do. It's easy to say. You got to be able to talk about it when you get something, and it's usually over something stupid.
Yeah.
But like you said, I'm not giving any ground, and I'm not giving any ground.
What's one piece of advice you would give somebody that's got a son, a daughter, or a family in their business? What advice would you give them, Dad, to how to make it work?
Cut back on the practical jokes. I mean, you're putting grease in the headliner of your hard hat and grease in the fingertips, and your gloves. I mean, you shouldn't do that to them. Other than that, talk to them, communicate with them, love them, because it goes away really fast.
Jay?
Or run. It could go either way.
What?
Run for us.
Go find somebody else's family.
I still got a little adopted package just in case.
What advice would you give to the family business? Someone that's, and I talk about this because I'm like looking at Jake right now, my business partner now in Oregon. He's got a son coming up. He just graduated college, and so he's probably 8 years ahead of my son. And I'm like watching it because it's intriguing to me, like the dynamic, right? Because I've been through it, and I'm trying to like give him advice and encouragement, like this is what worked for me, this is what didn't work for me. Maybe it works for you, maybe it doesn't. But what would you?
So kind of watching all the different generational shifts I've seen with different age gaps, because that is different. You got to give them the chance, introduce it, little bits, come on a Saturday, spend a day, come do something, see if it piques their curiosity. But you can't push them, and you can't, there is a in some families, there's an expectation, this is what you're going to do. You were born, bred, and raised to do this. And like in my family, you were raised to do this. If you're not going to do this, you're dead to me. And that's one view. And the other one is, you got opportunities. We had to do it because we couldn't eat. The next generation got a little better. You've had an opportunity to go to school, find you can do anything you want. Go figure out what makes you happy. And give them the chance. And sometimes all of a sudden they wander off and then they say, you know what? I am a little intrigued. I want to come back. And that then it becomes their idea. Because when it's your idea, it sucks.
Yeah.
When it's their idea, it's wonderful. And you know, it's like anything with kids. If they come by it naturally, it's great. But I think that I think it's about all communication. It is incredibly hard to say open communication, keep it, make sure you can talk about the hardest of hardest things. In Judy's family, you could sit down and it didn't matter whether it was drugs or addiction or anything. They would talk about it. In my family, nobody says a word. Not a goddamn thing. And it's just a different world.
Yeah.
You know, in that old school, they don't talk about, you got a problem, so we just don't talk about it, and they'll go away over time. And the new centers just get it out on the deck. And if we're going to face something, let's face it together. And if you need somebody in the middle, but don't be afraid to address the hard stuff. You know, the hard stuff is hard stuff for a reason, and somebody has to talk about it.
Yeah, get it out there, get it out in the open. I think if I can reiterate that, yeah, communicate with each other, come up with a plan. I think once we kind of came up with a plan, once you and I remember where we were at. We were in downtown Eagle. We went to that coffee shop. It had been a rough battle. My mom was there, and we fucking had it out. And it was like, I can't fucking do it. F you, I'm out. We're gonna do something different. And that's where I thought this thing was going. And it was like, and he came and he said, I'm out. I'm done.
How many times did you quit?
I never quit,
oh, really?
But I threatened to quit like a zillion.
I stopped counting. Yeah, it's like, oh, well, I quit again. You know, burned all the hair upside your head. I quit. I'm not doing this anymore.
But communication is key, and I think that until that point, we had our good moments, we had tough moments, but it was, okay, how are we going to make this work? And I think that was the thing.
But what intrigues me, one of the things about podcasts and about this kind of stuff, this didn't happen in our world. Like, nobody talked about this stuff. We hid and said, what the fuck is your family doing? You know? We tried not to let anybody hear us talk about it. And we were all like, you know, is yours as screwed up as mine is? It's like, but I think that the goal and the takeaway and all the communication that you guys, you know, anything that happens is like global in a matter of seconds.
Yeah.
And I made a comment on one last week, and like with instant, my kids are like, what the hell did you do? It's like, But I think that when I look at this family, and I didn't have the benefit of my own family, my family is the people here. I mean, there are so many people that I have relationships with here in this room over 40 plus years. And, you know, you can be anywhere and pull into a scrapyard. I've left that motorcycle at scrapyards all over the country. You know, I'd run, hey, how are you? Can I have a little corner where I can plug in and put my charger in? I'm going to the airport. But I have people I count on that I know I can call and say, I need something, or I don't get something. And they're always there. And I think that is the family. My family is here. And I have a family of choice because my regular family is totally Looney Tunes. But it's just a great ability to be out there. And I think this industry welcomes people and shares information and gives support when somebody's, you know, because bad stuff happens. You can be the biggest competitors. Somebody has a fire, or God forbid a fatality, and if you haven't been through any of that, you know, that's just safety has to be paramount to everybody.
I've witnessed it, and I think the people that have the most success in our industry are the people that are most open. They're the people that are willing to share. They're the people that are willing to help. And those are the people that have the most success because they have the most relationships and they have the largest network. And, I mean, when you say family business, like, the guys I work with every day, those are my best friends. They're my family. Like, we have our knockdown dragouts. We have like, hey, I don't agree, we don't disagree, but at the end of the day, like, that is your family. And
well, that must be you, because I don't have any of those problems. I never disagree with anybody.
So, you never have any of those disagreements? Hey, you're pretty quiet, but I know better, and I could tell you stories, and you could probably tell stories without a microphone in your face. But just know that it's hard. know that it's challenging, but know that, you know, if the situation's right, it takes two sides to tango. It takes a younger generation. Real quick, while I'm there, the younger generation has so many more options. Like, they don't have to be in the family business. If they don't want to, they could. I mean, shit, you could do a lot of different things today that you couldn't do 10, 20 years ago. So if you've got kids, know that they have options. Let them come to you to a certain extent. Let them go taste the world, right? Let them go see what's going on. And like you said, they might come back. And if they don't, that's fine. There's guys like Alter that'll buy you.
So my kids ask, why did you go in the scrapping? It's the only thing I know. I have no fallback plan. I'm a one-trick pony. This is all I know.
You're a burn the ships guy. We burned the ships.
We would have all starved to death if I.
Yeah.
So Rod, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
How proud are you? I mean, what he's done with the business and all the growth and between the tires and the storage and the new entities and.
You know, last night we were just walking from here to our little bit nicer place down the road that we're staying at.
The Luxor, in case you want to know, we're staying at the
It's
Ritz
ancient,
next
like
door.
a pyramid.
But I was with all these guys. We may have been drinking a tiny bit, but yeah, when you look at the group of people that he's surrounded himself with, and these people are surrounding me. I mean, I don't have a single worry in the world, and I'm proud. You bet I am.
So, you know, I ask because I watch them and I watch what's going on, and I've changed what brings happiness and what wealth is in this business and what family businesses are good for. If you can get to that point where your real value comes out of how much you can see the growth and the success of those others and the families you've empowered, I think that is like incredibly more fulfilling than you know, the money didn't hurt.
It helps.
First here, yeah. But
Changes my attitude.
it does make things a tad
Leads them to indiscretions.
keeps mama happy. But you know, I watch from afar, and my kids chose not to come in this business, but it's not mine. And then I got one that's grazing the side of it, which I think is a riot. But I watch Brett come along, and I think that's a fantastic thing. And the way he's taken it and changed where it was, you know, who would have thought you could do what he's doing? We didn't have enough money to build one garage, let alone a storage facility.
Well, I am where I am because I had a solid foundation to work off of. That's what it is. Like, I truly believe that. I'm as lucky as they come. I couldn't thank the two of you more for sitting here. I thank all the guys that support me, gals that support me, doing what I do. I can only hope to give it back just as much as they gave to me. And so that's why I do it. That's why I show what I do. That's why I say this is how I'm doing. This is what I'm doing. The good, the bad, the ugly, the in-between. And I just hope that at some point that helps somebody, because if it does, then I feel like we're winning. Thank you guys for coming. And if you haven't got a cigar, come get one.
Cheers.
Cheers.